Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And it's time for the second most fun of the year-end lists. So, as I said in my worst hits list a few days ago, 2017 was not a good year to make Todd rip-off videos. Pop music didn't really have much to care about this year. The worst didn't stick out or piss me off as much as the last 2 years, and the best, honestly, kinda the same deal. Not as much rose to the top as easily either. Of course, I do find this list less personally embarrassing than last year's. I stand by my enjoyment of all my picks from 2016, but there was very little of it that I could defend as actual good music. I said I can understand why people don't like this a lot. There's some of that here, but not nearly as much. So that's at least good. But it does come with the caveat that I started kind of pushing what actually qualifies as a hit for this particular list. I don't know, I felt like there was a lot less to pick from as far as stuff that actually had genuine major success on Billboard in the US. So there's going to be some picks here that I have a feeling other people are going to disqualify as hits for their own lists. I mean, you're not going to have anything on here like Steven Wilson's Permeating, which could top my list this year if there were anything resembling an excuse to call it a hit. Which there really isn't. But I have intentionally been vague about my criteria for what does or doesn't qualify as a hit, so that I have room to do whatever I want with these lists. If I can come up with some kind of lame excuse for its placement, it'll qualify. In 2015, I put Disclosure's Omen and Kendrick's King Kunta on my best hits list, despite neither of those precisely being chart toppers. Shut up. That happened again this year. Because at the end of the day, the main purpose of this particular list is for me to break out of the electronic exclusive format of my channel and talk about stuff that I wouldn't talk about otherwise. It's about the stuff that I personally want to talk about, and that's mainly it. At least this list is. The worst list is basically just for your guys' entertainment more than anything. I will primarily stick to stuff that charted high on Billboard in the US, though. And the other disclaimers, obviously this is just my opinion, you can feel free to disagree with it. If you hate any of these tracks, that's fine. I'm not trying to force you to like any of these. I mean, it would be nice if I ended up making people like these more, but I'm not exactly gonna bend over backwards for it. It's just ranked on my personal enjoyment and nothing else. So without any further ado, let's get right into the top 10 best hit songs of 2017. So to start with, let's do my guilty pleasures and honorable mentions. The ones labeled GP, Guilty Pleasure, aren't necessarily good enough to make the list proper, but I do enjoy them, albeit with some definite personal embarrassment attached. So let's get those over with first. I've been on a low, I've been taking my time. I feel like I'm out of my mind. Hey guys, let's cover the comments and jokes about how Logic talks about being biracial a lot in his most recent album. Logic is biracial. Logic ate some biracial flakes today. Biracial is Logic. These aren't completely freaking played out at all. Okay, no, that's not my defense of this track. I completely 100% understand the people who think it's shit. I mean, not only is it so serious and depressing, follows the same chord progression that the Chainsmokers popularized with Closer, and does not seem like the kind of thing that can work with repeat listens. But most notably, it nearly derails itself completely with just one ad-lib in the chorus. Who can relate? Woo! I don't even take issue with the who can relate. I do not have any defense for the woo. That is as out of place and self-defeating as you can possibly get. Despite this, I still like the song. First of all, the woo is weirdly less annoying every time I hear it. I have no explanation for that, and I have a feeling it's the exact opposite for everyone else. Anyway, I do like the concept of the track, and having this thing that promotes the suicide hotline for people who need it, and if you remove the woo, it actually is a really touching track with some really good sounding orchestral production. To me, at least. Not precisely a great track, and certainly not one that belonged on the pop charts, not one that I have a lot of nice things to say about, but that's why we're in the guilty pleasure section. I don't really care if you cry. This year's winner of the Would Be Really Good If You Remove the Lead Artist award. Look into my eyes, can't you see they're open wide? This wasn't a hit, didn't chart here in the US at all, and only had moderate success in other countries. Number 1 in Germany, I guess. Also, it kinda came out at the end of last year, even though I didn't discover it until this year, but my only other opportunity to talk about this seriously was a podcast that I don't think a lot of people listen to. I mean, you should check out that podcast anyway, look up Mad Sounds, but holy fucking crap, guys, there was a David Guetta track that I didn't only like, but also extensively listen to over the course of this past year. A David Guetta track. Something has seriously gone wrong with the world. I think a big part of it was just me being familiar with Guetta's progression as an artist, and that this track resembles his really early career, the Just a Little More Love period, when his sucking kinda ended up being amateurish and unoriginal, and he was actually kinda fun, especially thanks to Chris Willis, who is like the only singer who's ever sounded like he's enjoying himself over Guetta's beats. Always had mad respect for that guy because of that. Also, it capitalized off the success of two of my favorite hits of the past 2 years, Can't Feel My Face and Can't Stop the Feeling. I know everyone hated the latter. Boy, did I hear about that pick last year, but fuck it, I don't care. If this had charted this year, I'd have had to put David Guetta really high up on my best hits list, and this scares me. Thankfully, he's gone back to sucking as usual after that, so there's at least some sense in the world, you know? All you have to do is stay a minute, just God, I wanted to like this one more. There are so many cool moments in this thing, going from some cool sample manipulation to sounding like Kygo on a good day to the vocoders on the chorus, but I don't know, that drop is really flat and Martin Garrix-y. And it just doesn't really suit Zed well. I know he's capable of better than this. Oh well, I'll take it anyways, at least it's interesting and everything besides the drop is cool.
Hey, I remember syrup sandwiches, Vanessa.
Yeah, this didn't make the list proper. It's not a huge favorite. Kendrick has far better stuff in him than this in my opinion, but hey, it was good enough to mention here.
I'm on my way.
If only Ed Sheeran made songs this good all the time, I could forgive all the thinking out loud he's done.
Jump in the Cadillac. Girl, let's put some miles on it.
Bruno Mars is probably going to get stale pretty quickly in the coming years, but I'm glad to still have him around regardless.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the time.
For me, the winner of the One Direction solo career sweepstakes was definitely this guy, Harry Styles. Now, Lauren wasn't too far behind. He's similarly listenable, but what Styles has over everyone else is basically just nostalgia pandering. I've checked out his whole album. He likes emulating the kinds of music my dad listens to, old 60s and 70s classic rock and that kind of thing, and I can always respect that. Now, this was honestly going to be on the list proper until I realized that I didn't want to listen to it anymore after like 2 listens. Maybe in a better year for me, personally, it could have made it higher, but I don't think I need it in my life right now. It's a little too depressing. But I will give credit where credit is due. So, that's it for the honorable mentions and guilty pleasures. Now let's get into the list proper. Number 10. And speaking of super serious tracks that I can't listen to all the time, but I still very much enjoy anyways.
I hope you're somewhere praying.
Yeah, this is low on the list because, like Sign of the Times, I really got to be in the right mood for it. It doesn't feel like the kind of thing that would work well taking a radio context into play. Kesha has a couple of things over Harry Styles, though. First of all, there's the obvious context in what she's writing about the track in the first place. A context that, unfortunately, I feel like you'd need to fully appreciate it. Look up her whole debacle with Dr. Luke. Secondly, it's at least a more positive sentiment. Sign of the Times made me feel like I was going to a funeral or something. Praying at least has the common courtesy to be uplifting. It does take a long time to really get going for me. Not until the second half of the track is it really material for this list.
I hope you're somewhere praying.
So yeah, overall a track I wish I could get behind more and not one I see following me out of 2017, but I can still definitely get behind it as is, so let's talk about something less serious, okay? Number 9. Hey guys, remember last year when I put a guilty pleasure on the list proper because I'm just that big of a sucker for an electronic heavy disco groove?
Sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my...
I definitely got some shit for that pick. And for some reason I did it again this year.
You just want attention, you don't want my heart.
Whoops, I actually really like this thing. I mean, I get why people don't like it. It is Charlie Puth after all, and he has not had a good track record. Or a good 9-track record if you like. But I feel like there's been a part of me who's been kinda been waiting to give Charlie Puth a break. I mean, I was one of those people who actually really liked See You Again 2 years ago. It's not like he made a bad first impression, and I can't exactly say he's the most convincing, basically pretending to be something out of The Weeknd's most recent material here.
I know that stress is karma.
I think The Weeknd even had a track called Attention himself.
You're looking for attention.
Oh yeah, it was one of the ones I didn't like from Starboy. Good to know. Yeah, I have my problems with Attention. If there was only a track where he stayed in his less annoying lower register and tried less to present himself as a badass or something like that, but still kept the groove. Oh wait, shit, I forgot that actually exists.
How long has this been going on? You've been creeping around on me.
You know, How Long is actually a better track in basically every way. That'd be a less embarrassing pick for this list, I think. And it was a hit too, albeit not as big. You know what, how about I do that? Number 9 is now How Long instead, and Attention, I guess, is guilty pleasure number 4. I haven't yet gotten the indication that people really hate How Long. Maybe you all hate that one too, but I still got enough out of this and Attention to put them on the list. Sue me. Let's go to the next one, hopefully something less embarrassing. Number 8. Yeah, if we're going to talk about how much I'm a sucker for new disco grooves and pop music, let's stick to people with better credibility in that department. I kinda knew this one was gonna be on the list since 2016, though. Interestingly, I don't often see much love for this one from other people. Maybe tracks like Starboy in the Hills got people too hyped and this sounded too much like a Michael Jackson track than its own thing. Maybe it was just too laid back. I don't know. If you're not feeling it, that's fine. This wasn't exactly my favorite track from the Starboy album either, but I mean, let's not forget that we got Daft Punk in the top 10 this year. It's been 4 years since Random Access Memories was released, and this is the only peep we've gotten from Daft Punk since. I'm worried they're known for ridiculously long absences between albums. I mean, R.A.M. came after a 7-year silence, but I don't know, I was starting to feel their absence more this year. I think maybe because of this. If their work with The Weeknd is anything to go by, it's that these guys haven't lost it yet. I feel like Coming having always come off to me more as Daft Punk featuring The Weeknd rather than the other way around. It's a track that I liked when I first heard it and liked a little more every subsequent time I heard it, and now fits easily among the other choices for this list, so yeah. Looking forward to whatever Daft Punk do in 2023 or whenever they decide to do something again. Number 7. Man, I had been so convinced these guys would be one-hit wonders despite deserving much better. Sometimes the Billboard charts surprise me in a good way. Few dance acts out there struck me as having as much potential as Clean Bandit. Ever since I heard Rather Be when looking up the Grammy nominations one year, I started to realize that these guys were really great at what they do. Their specific brand of bright dance pop complete with string quartet were not only a unique voice in the genre, but they were also just ridiculously great at coming up with hooks. I still think these guys can be really creative if they put their mind to it. There were some weird tracks in their debut album that really made it stand out as a solid debut. But then after that debut, they really started slipping into a formula and just trying to write Rather Be over and over. They were good enough with hooks to get away with it. I still like most of their tracks, but I wanted them to take risks a little more often. In order for them to really wow me at this point, they'd either have to make the best goddamn Rather Be clone ever, or experiment with their sound a little more, and Rockabye is in category number 2. I know the whole tropical house and DJ Snake vocal chops is kinda conforming to the zeitgeist more than anything, but first of all, they'd done the whole calypso thing before on their track Come Over. And this is way better than Come Over. Whatever, maybe it's a safe bet production-wise, but I'm glad they're not writing the same track over again. I also like the lyrics in the story about single mothers. Always cool to see them talking about an interesting topic when no one would ever expect them to. I don't know, I'm just glad to see Clean Bandit sticking around, and I really hope the best out of that second album. Number 6. I liked Vid, but one wish. May you not using a fart sound effect in your videos anymore, please? I mean, on one hand, I would like it if people didn't make pop songs that sounded like high-pitched farting, but very well, I'll use the sound of Michael Rosen-Retting instead. With apologies to the guy who left that comment and didn't have a good intro for this one. I think it's kind of an obvious pick. Don't really have much to say on this one either, besides I think it's really weird that this became such a big hit at all. This long-form 70s throwback thing that's more weird and chill rather than the kind of thing you'd likely see on Billboard. Well, it's only 5.5 minutes, but by the standards of tracks you typically see on this list, that's pretty long. Got a long solo at the end and everything. This got big on a weird horror movie and weird memes, and became one of the biggest hits of the year. Okay, if only movies and memes would more often give us better music like this. I don't like this for most of the same reasons I like the other tracks on this list. It's kind of more this creepy thing that works well to chill out to, despite the lyrics which tell me to do the exact opposite. But I don't know. I have enjoyed every time I hear this thing and appreciate the fact that it got so successful at all, so yeah. Next one. Number 5. Hi, Buffer Music. Okay, I really don't have much to say about this one either. I had no idea who this band were before this year. From what I can tell, they were like really underground before this. Just happened to score this hit thanks to its use in a lot of commercials. But unlike Imagine Dragons' big hits this year, this track didn't seem quite as blatantly created for the purpose of being used in commercials. I still really like that old school 60s throwback production, all the cool instrumentation like the horns and stuff. Prevented it from wearing out with repeat listens. That lead vocalist initially really bothered me too, but he's not nearly as bad by this point. It's a track that got better and better every time I heard it, and that really doesn't happen with pop songs, so yeah, obviously there are better tracks on this list, but I will definitely take this one. I can see this one sticking around past this year, so yeah, next one. Number 4. God damn it, Calvin Harris is 3 for 3. You know, in general, I really don't like Calvin Harris, hard as it may be to believe, given how he's made on this list 3 years in a row. There's definitely a part of me that does not want to give him props for Slide, especially after hearing it in the full context of the album Funkwave Bounces Volume 1. I made a full review on that album if you want to check it out, but basically I was really disappointed to find that the album itself was basically just Slide rewritten 10 times over. That's also why Feels didn't make the list. Once the album dropped, I still liked it, but not enough to put on here. But I will admittedly have to give Calvin Harris credit for Slide. This track showed him totally moving in like a 70s throwback direction. A lot of throwback stuff on this list, but it is what it is. Calvin Harris had never done anything like that before, and it weirdly came off a lot more credible than I ever would have believed. Ended up getting a lot more repeat listens, and yeah, this is still the best track from that album. It's the original, it's the idea that sparked all the clones, it's the one I have the most fun listening to, the one that retains its novelty, while the rest of the album slowly gets less interesting with each passing listen. I'm hoping not to see this guy on the list again next year, but I will give credit where credit is due. Slide is a really good song. And I have a feeling this one's gonna stick with me like My Way and Ready for the Weekend did before, so yeah. Number 3. Alright, let's get one last obvious pick out of the way.
I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Cocaine.
Yep, one of those tracks you're gonna see on every list. 2017 was the year that enabled Kendrick Lamar at his most aggressive to climb to the top of the charts and even stay there longer than a week. Something you would never see unless you lived in a year where the public got to decide what became a hit through streaming platforms. That being said, there is definitely a part of me that wants to give more props to the whole Damn album. I remember first hearing Humble and thinking, that's it? And the album itself, it was pretty inconsistent if you ask me. There were a fair few tracks on there like Loyalty God and especially Pride that I could never fully get into. Most of it was just okay and required me to be in a certain mood to really get into it in general. But the standouts on there were some of my favorites from Kendrick to date. Triple X with U2, Duckworth, and of course, DNA. This track blew me away on first listen and explained to me in a visceral way what FIFO means when he says something bumps in the whip.
It bumps in the whip.
Just a crazy good track that I'm sure no one needed my help to get into. Number 2. Okay, this is the part where I start bending what qualifies as a hit. This track did chart on Billboard, but only hit number 90. Really not a hit at all by most standards for these lists, but I'm the electronic music guy. This is the only opportunity I ever get to talk about pop music. If I don't talk about this one here, I'm never going to get the chance to talk about it again, so fuck it. It's close enough to a hit to put on here. Yell at me all you want, I don't care. I need to do this. I wouldn't typically call myself a big fan of Paramore, never really paid much attention to them or cared that much about them before. That Ain't It Fun song from a few years ago was pretty good, but oh my god, guys, I freaking love basically everything about this track. The lyrics are about struggling with depression. There's not a single lyric in there that seems to indicate Hayley Williams thinks things will ever get better. Considering how fucking exhausting 2017 was for me personally, especially right at the end, near final exam season, definitely did find everything she said here to be relatable as hell. Now, if the music was as dour as the lyrics, like Sign of the Times, it'd still work obviously, but instead the music is super peppy and upbeat. Like, sure, everything sucks and it feels impossible to see an upside to anything in life, but fuck it, let's put a smile on anyways and turn this track about hitting rock bottom into this lighthearted, catchy new disco track with some rock elements. This is a track that acknowledges how fucking terrible reality is and uplifts me in spite of it, not with any empty, meaningless platitudes in the lyrics about how it's going to get better. I mean, Hayley Williams clearly doesn't believe that. Instead, she just lets the rest of the band and the instrumental give off that vibe. Also, major points for Daft Punk showing up at the end. I know it's not exactly the most original idea in the world, but goddamn, it was one that I personally needed this year. Now some people are wondering, hey, if we're including tracks that should have been bigger hits but didn't chart high enough, where's Lord's Green Light on this list? I think that song's good, but I don't know about... I said it was good! Shut up! Yeah, let's just finish up the list already. Number 1. Right, my number 1 pick. This went to number 1 in Croatia, number 1 in Latvia, number 1 in Mexico, Norway, Poland, Scotland, and the UK in its entirety, and made the top 10 in lots of other countries. It did not chart at all on Billboard in the US. The YouTube video for this track has more views than the previous big American hit these guys had a few years ago. I've got a fairly substantial British audience. I feel like I can still qualify this one as a hit, right? If not, fuck you, I'm doing it anyway. So like I said before, regarding Clean Bandits, in order for them to really wow me at this point, they'd either have to experiment with their sound a little more, or make the best goddamn Rather Be clone ever, one that perfected the formula entirely. So, if you want the truth,
I just wanna be part of your symphony. Will hold me tight and not let go.
I have no fucking words for Symphony. I've been wondering when Clean Bandit's formula was ever going to get stale, and they've managed to keep me this invested while still obviously writing the same track over and over again, but I don't care. Symphony is bar none Clean Bandit's best track to date. I just don't have any real commentary for this. I mean, the video has clearly a live orchestra playing the song, and I would love to hear the location sound for that, but yeah, as it stands, this track is just fucking perfect. Something else to say. Did you know that Zara Larsson is 2 years younger than me? Yeah, I'm starting to feel old. Oh, and according to one article I found, Clean Bandit's second album is probably finally going to drop next year. That's cool. We'll be anticipating that. I think that's basically all I have to say. This is by far the pop song I listened to the most in 2017, and even if it didn't chart in the US, I was willing to push it and qualify it for the list anyway. I don't care. I just love this song too much. And yeah, I think that's a good place to end on. Of course, this is all just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. So leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.